Hi, everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
Hey, it's Wendy K. Laidlaw here, and a very belated Happy New Year as we come into 2021. I do apologise for not having been on for a while, but this year has got off a lot busier than I had expected. So I recently did a very long, one of my favourite special events called an Educational Webinar MasterClass, and it occurred to me after I did it, and it's kind of almost a 2.5 hour event, that perhaps you might benefit from hearing from segments from it. In fact, what I thought I'd do over the next couple of days or the next week is split up the webinar and give you an idea of just this wealth of education information that is available to you free of charge. And I thought I could disperse this and share this through my podcast. So I'm going to be, in the next couple of minutes, you're going to hear the first half hour of my webinar. And I hope you really find this to be enlightening and encouraging and inspiring to you, and educational most importantly. I think all women should be making fully informed decisions, whatever they decide to do. And as I say, over the next couple of days, I'm going to be drip feeding you this webinar because it's a big chunk to take in one fell swoop, and hopefully that you find it, as I say, it helps to regain any hope that has been lost, help to inspire you, but most importantly, inform and educate you as you should be. So enjoy. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the masterclass, this educational webinar. I'm so excited that you are all here. And we have a very special guest coming on at the end of the webinar, and you will get to meet her. She was actually on this webinar just over a year ago, and she's going to be jumping on and sharing her story as how she has been able to put not only her migraines and her insomnia and all sorts of other issues, but her endometriosis and cysts and things in remission as well. And she has just graduated as an EndoBoss practitioner coach. So she will be coming on at the end. So I'm so excited to be sharing some information with you. And what I would suggest is that you take notes and things as we're going along. And if there are any questions, what I'd suggest is I will make some time at the end to answer your questions. I know there was 1 or 2 people that had emailed questions in. I have got some notes here, but for any reason I miss you or missed your question, please pop it in the Q&A button at the bottom, or if you're on your phone, you'll see it along the bottom. So you can ask any questions. Chances are I will cover them throughout the webinar. I've been doing this a few years now, and I understand exactly where you're at. I've never forgotten. I've made it my mission never to forget where you're at right now. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen in a second. Okay, so before we start, I think it's really important to state the obvious. Make sure that you don't have any other distractions or anything going on around about you. Maybe tell family and friends that you are like at the end of your tether. You need to really learn and listen to what's kind of going on right now. So turn off any other distractions, any other browsers, and just really open up your heart, your soul, your mind to why you're here. Something has drawn you to me. Something has drawn you to this particular point and part in your life. So make sure that you're fully away from distractions. Let's face it, we get so many distractions, don't we? So my name is Wendy K. Laidlaw. If you don't know who I am, I'm a best-selling author. I'm delighted to say that my book has went to #1 on Amazon. I'm also a certified life and business coach, retrained in nutritional therapy, and I also specialize in endometriosis, adenomyosis, and infertility. And I will tell you much more about that as we go through. But the point of this webinar is, the title of it is How to Put Your Endometriosis or Heal Endometriosis Naturally Without Painkillers, Drugs, or Surgery. And my goal from this webinar is to help you recognize your body's amazing innate ability to heal itself with the right information, education, and direction, of course. As I said at the very, very beginning, yeah, our bodies are incredible, but nobody's actually let us know that our bodies are incredible. We just didn't have that knowledge, but this is where I'm going to be sharing some of that tonight. Now, we're going to cover a couple of different things. We're going to cover what is Heal Endometriosis Naturally, how does my business operate, and what is the essence? Why do I do what I do? What doctors and consultants don't tell you about endometriosis, the 3 secrets to healing, and how you can apply to join the program at the end. And of course, hear from the many, many success stories. And then there'll be a chance for Q&As at the end. So as I say, if you've got very pressing and important questions for you, please either write them down now and or put them in the Q&A box, and I'll hope to answer them for you at the end. But what makes this different? Well, it's my approach and what I refer to as the Laidlaw protocols. It's these set of protocols that I have developed, have tried and tested on myself as the guinea pig over the years, and that actually now works. So instead of actually trying to manage the symptoms and pain, which is very much what the Genological medical field do, they're symptom suppressors. They're trying to suppress symptoms. We here are instead trying to get to the root cause. So instead of managing symptoms and pain, what we're looking to do is identify the underlying root causes to help you become a boss of your endometriosis, an endo boss. So we address it quite systematically. I've got quite an analytical part to my mind. I know when I was bedridden and almost near total organ failure, I knew that something was going wrong and I didn't quite know what. And I knew I had to do something differently. So I started to pay attention. I started to look at what was going on on and around my body, what was coming in, inflammatory foods, what products were perhaps toxic and inflammatory, what was in my environment, in my property, looking at past trauma, unconscious, inherited, ancestral line, PTSD, all sorts of the different things that were going on, and as well as past, but also people. I had no idea, call me maybe naive and maybe just kind of thinking that everybody in the world was lovely, that there were such a thing as toxic people. And I'll talk a wee bit more about that at the end. But these were the kind of things, what I refer to as the 5 Ps, the 5 poisons that could affect us as women. Women who, and you'll probably know this, women with endometriosis tend to be exquisitely sensitive. I call us EHISPs, exquisitely highly intuitive, sensitive people. Now, that doesn't mean that we are weak by any manner of means, because we're not. We're incredibly strong women, but it means that we also have those parts to us that are incredibly sensitive to the produce, the products, the property, past, and people. So we need to also look at restoring nutritional deficiencies. And because it's a multimodal, multifaceted approach, it's based on science. So we're not just guessing at things, we're actually systematically recording and tracking everything as we go along, using a set of tried and tested Laidlaw protocols that you need to use over at least 6 to 12 months. So before we go into how that's actually going to work, I think it's important to kind of really get clear on what endometriosis is, if you didn't already know. Endometriosis is named when the inside of the uterus tissue is found outside the uterus in the abdominal cavity and sometimes in other areas of the body. You may have heard, or you may have had, some people obviously have it on their bladder or intestines. It's very common, but equally in their lungs and things as well. Now, endometriosis, as you can see from this wee diagram here, every month when you're supposed to have your menstrual cycle, the mucous membrane tissue in endometrious plants is located in the wound, either retrogrades or finds its way back into the abdominal cavity or moves through the blood, the blood supply. But obviously, what happens is the tissue that then finds itself in the abdominal cavity and other areas acts as if it's inside the uterus. So what it does is it sheds and it bleeds. So that's why you can end up with lots of things like adhesions and scarring and other issues like cysts and fibers, which I'll talk about in a minute. I also had adenomyosis, and I'm delighted to say, despite being heavily bullied and pressured to have a hysterectomy, I was able to put my adenomyosis into remission as well. But for those who don't know what adenomyosis is, sadly, I developed this after my 6th surgery. So, and it's characterized when the endometrium tissue starts to grow into the muscular wall of the uterus. And it makes you feel like you're sort of giving birth and you're bearing down, and it's excruciatingly painful. Sadly, the only sort of prospects, if you're dealing with the gynecological medical profession, is they suggest a hysterectomy. Now, as I say, I've been able to put it in remission, and I know other women have as well who've worked with me. So you keep that in mind and make sure that you're remembering that if you should ever get told that. Now, ovarian cysts, chocolate cysts, endometriomas, whatever you want to call them, they're very common as well. As I explained, when the endometriosis tissue finds its way out of the uterus and into the abdominal cavity, it can actually almost sort of develop like little sacs. So what can actually happen is these skin formations form around what is thick, dark old blood, which is why it's called a chocolate cyst. But I think what's really important, and I know that cysts can be painful because I used to be incredibly prone to cysts, and after my 6th surgery, I developed 8 chocolate cysts. Can you believe that? I've never been one to do things by halves. I had 8 chocolate cysts, but again, I managed to put them all into remission naturally through my own protocols. But I think it's very important to mention here, whilst it can be very uncomfortable, especially if they're pressing on the bladder or you feel them when you're having a bowel movement, they are harmless. They're non-cancerous and they are harmless. And cysts, as you will find, will come and go if you haven't addressed the root causes. So I say that, some people go and get their cysts measured and they're alarmed because they're frightened by the medical professionals they're interacting with into feeling the worst. So I say that to reassure that part. Whilst it's uncomfortable and unpleasant to have it, and obviously you want rid of it and you want it to regress naturally, it is a harmless substance that's in it. Now, if it does erupt, it's quite unpleasant on your abdominal. I know, because I had a cyst that burst and it wasn't much fun. The same with fibroids. Fibroids are filled with dense material, muscle and fibrous tissue. So again, they are harmless and non-cancerous. And I say that again to reassure you because it's so important to know. But what can sometimes happen is that women get into these perpetual surgical wheels that they just end up not getting out of. And surgery by itself is very, very damaging to the inside of the body and causes a lot of inflammation and what I call sort of adhesions, which is kind of like the top of a chicken skin, that white fibrous material, and that can cause all sorts of issues, like it did with me when I had a partial bowel obstruction, and it ended up tying down my ovaries and all sorts of issues if you get adhesions as well. So again, you can see fibroids, the different types of fibroids, but basically, if you look at even fibroids or cysts or endometriosis or adenomyosis, they're all estrogen dominant conditions. And I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute. But basically, your immune system should be strong enough to mop up, clean up, dissolve, and disintegrate any of these sort of aliens that are out of place that are in your body. So anything that is out of place in your body is always trying to repair and clean that up naturally. Now, what is interesting is what I found, certainly working with many women over the past couple of years now, and I know myself, is especially with cysts and fibroids, has been linked to a lot of emotional stress and past childhood loss or trauma at the root of the cyst. So it's very, very common. There's this phrase that we use, nurse old hurts in the heart of the South, and the heart of the South being the uterus. So again, as I'm saying this, just see what comes up for you. In some yoga circles, it's believed that the womb carries the ancestral trauma of the female generations before them. And if you think about even, I was discussing this with a colleague just at the beginning of the week about how, if you think World War II wasn't that long ago, almost like 60, 70 years ago, and how much trauma there was around the world during that time, loss and maiming and destruction and all sorts of things that went on. So, and they didn't have the resources 50, 60, 70 years ago to deal with the trauma. So what happens to that trauma invariably, or sometimes, can get stored in the body. So there's a multimoded approach, especially when it comes to estrogen dominant conditions. Now, estrogen is actually made up of 3 parts, and I won't go into that much detail at the moment, but there's about 50 different
hormones in your body. And what we're primarily concerned with estrogen dominant conditions is how to rebalance our estrogen and how to increase other hormones that help balance that out. Now, so in my view, endometriosis is caused by a hormonal imbalance and inflammation. And as I say, that inflammation and hormonal imbalance can come from maybe one or all or several of the 5 Ps, the 5 poisons. Now, as I say, we as women have been around for millions upon millions of years. And as I say, it's very interesting when you start to think about the gynecological industry, if you like, as it is an industry, has only been around since 1920. That's just over 100 years. So we actually do have a tremendous capacity already built in that we didn't know that we had. And that was kind of my experience. I had no idea that it was even possible to put the condition in remission. I genuinely thought it was a life sentence because my mother had had it as well. But the top 3 problems doctors and surgeons don't tell you about: painkillers, drugs, and surgery. Number 1, again, I didn't know any of this, and this is why I do these master classes, so that you can at least, again, tune into your own instincts, tune into your own past, into your own history, and go, yeah, how did that help me? Because if you think that the gynecological field is designed to for symptom suppression and trying just to manage symptoms, not get to the root cause, sometimes we can take these things unknowingly. I know myself, painkillers. I was at points where I just like, give me painkillers because I want rid of the pain. But actually, what I didn't appreciate at the time was that they barely dulled the pain when I was at my worst. But what they also did was erode and inflame my stomach and my intestinal lining, which caused me all sorts of problems further up the road. Sometimes they're filled with additives, sometimes with wheat and E numbers, believe it or not, again, causing other sensitivities and things in the body. And again, the addictions to opioids is a major, major problem. A lot of doctors recently in America, 35 million in America, doctors were jailed for oversubscribing opioids, which of course have an addictive quality to them that, again, women wouldn't know about. There's a growing number of studies explaining how painkillers are damaging to the liver. And of course, most importantly, they don't address the underlying root causes. The same with drugs. They cause major and severe side effects. Again, I know I was on them, and in some cases they're irreversible, these side effects, and nobody really explains the pros and cons to these things at the time. But most importantly, the drugs in particular, things like Lupron and things like that, cause all sorts of issues to women's bodies, from bone thinning to hair loss to all sorts of different things, which is just as terrifying as the drug itself. So again, they don't actually address the underlying causes. And then of course there's surgery. Now, I was of that mentality, and I'm sure everybody is these days. We're all looking for the quick fix, aren't we? We want to order something on Amazon, we want to press a button and we want it delivered that day or the next day. We're conditioned in that quick fix mentality. Now, I was the master of that. I was like, okay, wheel me in, clean me up, sew me back up, and off I'll trot. That's what I thought when I had my fifth surgery. And I was very disrespectful to my body, I think, is probably my brain was kind of like, right, come on, body, you're annoying me, let's just get you cleaned up and get on our way. I just didn't have the time. I was too busy. There was too much going on. And I totally underestimated the impact surgery had or would have. And it causes major, major side effects, which again are not explained until after the event, when women realize, especially surgeries, laparoscopies, cystectomies. There's all sorts of new fandangle surgeries and things now, but in particular hysterectomies. It's tragic, a hysterectomy operation, because I know my mother had one when she was quite young, and she was devastated when she had her hysterectomy because all her endometriosis symptoms came back. And she had all these other side effects. She had all sorts of issues, and she was never the same afterwards. But over and above the side effects that aren't explained, because I think if doctors took the time to explain all the side effects, and there's a fantastic charity called HERS, Hysterectomy Education Resources and Services, run by Nora Covey. You can actually read and hear other women's stories before you make any decision. I believe all women should make fully informed decisions before they make. Now, with me, I rushed into a decision to have surgery without thinking about it. thinking, oh, I would just be cleaned up and on my way. I never in a million years imagined that from that surgery, I would end up bedridden for almost 3 years, almost near total organ failure. But over and above the known side effects, the most common ones are adhesions. Like I explained, they're kind of like that white fibrous tissue on top of a chicken breast. And it's almost like spider's web that kind of just branches out. It's a sticky substance that attaches itself to all different organs inside in your abdomen, which can then result in it being matted down, tangled, twisted. That's why you can get twisted ovaries, partial bowel obstructions, all sorts of different things. And then there's the kind of side effects that never even contemplated being an issue. Things like the anesthetic that they rub on your abdomen can actually be very damaging, and even the disinfecting cream on the mitochondria in the cells. Now, your mitochondria, if you don't know, are like little battery packs inside your cells that give you energy, bring in nutrients, and expel waste. Now, if there's anything toxic on your skin, then that affects the functionality of your mitochondria. I was able to get this incredible test done that measured my mitochondria score. And after my 6th surgery, and I was so deathly ill, I developed chronic fatigue, mitochondria dysfunction, thyroid issues, adenomyosis, you name it, I had it, like a long list as long as my arm. But I was able to get this particular test done by this incredibly pioneering doctor who was able to measure the energy score of my mitochondria in my cells and any radioactive elements. And it turned out there was radioactive elements on the membranes of my mitochondria, and they had come from this disinfecting cream that they put on your abdomen. So again, it was something that I just didn't even know to think about. But of course, surgery, again, like everything else, whilst it appears like a quick fix, it doesn't get to the root cause of why endometriosis has resurfaced or turned up in your body. And that's why you can hear of women. I had a lady email us the other week there. She's had 16 surgeries, and I've had ladies email me saying they've had stomach pacemakers, because of surgeries going wrong, so you can see that surgery, you can get into this surgical hamster wheel where before you know it, you're kind of going round and round and round in circles. And that's what happened to me with operation number 5 and number 6. So I hope you can learn from my mistakes. But the medical machine, the doctors, certainly the gynecological doctors, do not address the underlying causes of endometriosis. Now, I just want to say I'm not here to bash down doctors in the medical field, because it's incredible the advancements that we've had over the past, 100 years. It's incredible, the transplants. It's incredible what can, with this current crisis that we've got, accident and emergency, amazing. But when it comes to conditions like endometriosis, this is where the medical field really, really struggle. And they struggle because they're trying to do symptom suppression, and they're not addressing what the root causes, underlying causes of the condition are, or naturally address the hormonal imbalance or inflammation. Now, I know in the UK that doctors, when they're at their early part of their training, only get, now obviously you've got your general practitioners in the UK, and it might have a different name wherever you are in the world. But general practitioners tend to be the first port of call when a woman has had to suffer from period pains for decades. And we all know now that pain with a period is not normal. You should have 0 pain. Now, I never knew that. I never knew that pain was not normal, wasn't normal. I just, I had my mother and my grandmother say, well, Wendy, that's just part of being a woman. Pain with a period is just like what you do. That's just how you are. But when you first go to your doctor, they just will initially prescribe you painkillers or drugs. And then if you do get referred to a consultant, they are trained in surgery. So you can see how, if you have been stuck in this wheel for a while, it's not your fault. But what was interesting is my daughter's friend was training as a young doctor, and she was telling me how she was telling me how that they only get 2 weeks of training in gynecology in the medical university where she was. Only 2 weeks out of their whole 3-year training, or 5-year training, 4-year training. So you can see how, again, there's a lot of not enough information out there about pain in general, and especially pain in the abdomen or in the pelvic area, or worrying about your menstrual cycle. But pain with a period is not normal. Pain normally indicates from your body that is trying to tell you something, that something is a poison. And that's what we do. But what I do know that doesn't work is the painkillers, drugs, or surgery, including hysterectomy. I've had many a women approach me, because they've had hysterectomies and their symptoms have come back. And it's got nothing to do with willpower. The very fact that you're here tonight, you're on this webinar, that you're doing what you're doing, and you felt called to come to me, shows the type of woman that you are, that you have that willpower. And it's not through lack of determination either. And as I say, it's not your fault. And I really hope that you recognize that. For a long time, I beat myself up. I thought, if only this, if only that, but I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And this is why it's so important that you get into the know, that you understand, that you get a wider knowledge so that you can make better informed decisions. So what are the other options? Well, you can keep doing what you're doing if you're currently on that hamster wheel of painkillers, drugs, and surgery. As Albert Einstein said eloquently, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That was me. That was me for years. And I just thought, I just need to do it better. And I need to get a more specialist surgeon with smaller hands, with the most fantastic equipment. And I just kept going down that route. I thought that's what I needed to do. I just kept doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Or you can take back power and control of your life. And you can do so in an informed, educated way with the inspiration and knowledge to fully empower yourself. And I use the word naturally very tentatively, because this isn't, as I say, some new age fandangle kind of one-hit magic thing. It's not. It's a series of systematic steps and protocols to help you identify and become the master or the mistress of your body, and understand a body that has been evolving for millions of years, that has all this amazing technology available to her and information, and it's how to use it. Haven't you found that the internet is awash with information? That's not the issue, is it? Information is not the issue. It's how to dissect the information relative to you, and how you can use that information to get you better and get you well. So I'm sure you're thinking, you have to be, is healing endometriosis naturally really an option? I wouldn't be surprised if you're asking that, but yes, but through the Ladle protocols and the 5 Ps. So I've done a lot of things right, but I've also done a lot of things wrong on this journey. After doing 6 surgeries, the drugs and the painkillers over 33 years, I discovered, the number one thing I discovered was they made me worse. And that really frightened me, because I developed more and more symptoms. As I say, I had stage 4 endometriosis, I had chocolate cysts, I had adhesions, partial bowel obstruction, adenomyosis. I had overactive thyroid, then an underactive thyroid, because they gave me medication called carbismol, which then made my thyroid, made it underactive. I developed chronic fatigue syndrome, which was debilitating, almost had near organ failure, and I had mitochondrial dysfunction. I just felt like I was just jinxed. I was just, there were times I wasn't even sure that I was going to make it, So this is what I discovered, that they made me worse. I also discovered that, of course, whilst I was on that medical route, they weren't actually addressing the cause of the inflammation or hormone imbalance and what was going on. There was no actual kind of time taken to listen to me, to understand me, direct me, or even have any compassion. It was the painkillers, the drugs, or the surgery. And then, just to make matters worse, just to add insult to injury, the doctors washed their hands of me. After my 6th surgery, they pretty much insinuated I was a hypochondriac, that I was somehow aspiring to stay in bed and having to wind up my business and have no quality of life, not able to make any plans. And I do always remember saying to this one doctor, do you genuinely believe that my dream for myself when I was a little girl was to grow up, be in chronic levels of pain, have multiple surgeries, and end up bedridden with no quality of life? Do you genuinely think? So if you've been mistreated or bullied or whatever by the medical field, and there are some beautiful people, don't get me wrong, but if you've had mistreatment and you felt you misunderstood, it's completely understandable. I've been there. I completely get it. But this is why I needed to take back power and control of my body. Now, I had to discover all of this the hard way. And you get to save years and get the simple way to follow in my footstep. This is why I get so excited. And this is why I have more energy now than I've ever done. I have none of the diseases or the conditions or the symptoms now that I had before. None, zero. Now, there are people out there doing their stuff, which is awesome, but they're still in pain. I have zero pain, zero bloating, zero symptoms, zero any form of condition. And this is why I have more energy now than I ever had at any point in my life, because I get to share with you the steps that you can take. Now, the hard way is the endless visits to the doctor, hoping that they'll take the pain away, constant referrals to the consultant gynecologist who suggests yet more drugs and surgery, and then repeat endlessly and get worse and worse and worse. That was my hard way. And I'm sure you're wanting the simple way.
Hey, it's Wendy back again. So that's the first half hour of the educational masterclass. I hope you enjoy that. I'm going to leave you on a tender hooks there, waiting to figure out what the simple way is going to be. And I'm going to share more about the webinar and the simple way and the approaches in tomorrow's podcast. So make sure to tune in. And until then, to your health.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K. Laidlaw. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one, for the world needs a healthy you.